Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the TEQ Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks and how good he is after his Extreme Z Awakening at 55% in the Hidden Potential system. Now this is the Grim Reaper of Justice, Rampage, Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks. His Extreme Z Awakening was pretty good back in the day damage wise, and his Super EZA continues that trend while also making him a lot more defensively viable. Gotenks, to cut a long story short, is actually really good now, and he has a little bit of mitigation against what a lot of people consider the hardest part of his kit, being the 11 key. He's 100% tech lead. He raises attack for 1 turn on his extreme attack, which is his 11 key. He massively raises attack for 1 turn on his 10 key. He massively raises attack and causes immense damage on his 11 key, and he causes supreme damage and lowers defense on his 12 key. He has attack and defense of 150%. He gets an additional attack of 200% and defense of 100% when performing a super attack. He gives super class allies defense of 33% and extreme class allies attack of 33% for 3 turns from the character's entry turn. He gets an additional attack and defense of 100% when key is 11 or less. He gets an additional defense of 50% with each attack performed up to 150%. If all allies attacking in the same turn have obtained a key sphere, he has a chance of performing a critical hit plus 50% and damage reduction received by 50% within the same turn when his key is 11. And he has a high chance of evading the enemy's attack, including super attack, plus an additional chance of evading the enemy's attack, plus 33% when performing a super attack if key is 12. There's a lot to break down here, but let's talk about his build first. So in terms of build, very simple. This unit is more or less pretty much a additional slash crit unit. He has 50% crit if you get 11 key, which is great, so you want to benefit from additionals there. However, if you don't get 11 key, then basically you want the crit, because you still want to be able to hurt with his attack stats. The big thing is, I would still say he's probably more additionals than anything else, because even the baseline level of crit is pretty decent on him. Now, in terms of how he works, so it can be a bit confusing, but I'm here to kind of break it down. Firstly, let's just talk about the raw numbers before I get into some of the technicalities. Raw numbers wise, it's going to depend on the level of key you get, but generally speaking at 55% you can expect anywhere between 8 to 13 million, depending on if it's 10, 11 or 12 key, and how many attacks and if you have support. That's still pretty good, especially considering its start of turn defense. It ranges between 200 to 225,000, and you have to throw in all of the additional things he gets. He either has 88% damage, 83% evasion, or he has 50% damage reduction. So that's really quite good. Now let's talk about how he works. So it can be a little bit confusing. If your key is 11 or less, he gets an additional attack and defense of 100%. So if you get 10 key, basically he gets 100% attack and defense. If you get 11 key, he gets 100% attack and defense. So that should give you a decent understanding of that portion. I think that's pretty straightforward to follow. The next section is where it gets a little bit confusing. So if all allies in the turn have obtained a key sphere, his chance of performing a crit is plus 50% and his damage reduction is 50% when his key is 11. So why this exists and why it's stated like this is pretty simple. So let's say you put Gotenks in the first slot, which is fine, or the second slot, it's okay. You collect all the key orbs with everyone, and by the time you collect the third key orb, his key is 11. Okay, perfect, no problem. You then have a unit like TEQ Piccolo, who gets hit in the first slot and gives everyone 2 key. Gotenks' key is now 12. Does he have his damage reduction? Yes, because as long as his key is 11, as you pick up the orb with the final unit, whether it's him or anyone else, he will activate his passive in terms of the 11 key. It's to protect him against units that give key after the fact. So units like Piccolo, for example, units like Bulma, for example, it's to protect against that kind of mechanic. So that basically, essentially, if you get him to 11 key, you're not in a situation where you're trying to now balance what happens with other units. Now, the 12 key is also pretty good. So although you lose out on the attack and defense of 100%, so it is reduced attack. I mean, you can see even here that I'm getting 8-9 millions with the 12 key compared to 11-12. But what it does do, it gives you 83% evasion. And that kicks in when the key is 12 as well. So 83% evasion is pretty good, but it gives you options. So if you're in an event, for example, where evasion is disabled, then you might want to strive a bit harder to get Gotenks' 11 key. However, if you're in an event where evasion is not disabled, then getting his 12 key and his key management doesn't become so important. Obviously, striving to get Gotenks' 11 key is the main aim, but the way he's built now gives you a little bit more of a gap that you don't feel the pressure to having to have him run at 11 key all the time. Link-wise, Super Saiyan, Fused Fighter, Over in a Flash, Limit Breaking, Form, and the Innocence, Fierce Battle. These are all standard kind of links for a Gotenks. Obviously, if you just want to look at links, Super Saiyan, Innocence, Fierce Battle, pretty easy to get with Goten and Trunks' kids. Over in a Flash, Limit Breaking Form, very easy to get with Super Saiyan 3 units. Your best linking partner is going to be the Int Gotenks once he's fully transformed. But even Int Gotenks in his second form is pretty good. He still has Innocence, Fierce Battle, Fused Fighter, and Super Saiyan. And Gotenks only has 6 links, so not too much to really find about here. Ultimately, Gotenks is great. You actually kind of don't want to get his key links active because you actually really just want to control his key. But great unit.